What's up? I'm Amin Dylan, and welcome to my podcast. I'm sitting down with the movers and shakers and the stars to chat about life, love, business, and being a total boss. It's raw, it's candid, it's the stories behind the headlines. This is In Conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back to my show. I'm your host, Amin Dylan, and I'm so excited because on today's episode, I'm sitting down with the woman who's being credited for helping make classical music make its way back into the mainstream scene. That's right, today I'm chatting with the one and only Chloe Flower. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Chloe Flower is on the show today. Girl, thank you so much for making the time out. I know you're so busy, but I really do appreciate it. How's it going?
It's great. Very busy, super, super busy. I never thought quarantine would be this busy, but I guess that's a good thing,
Oh, so going to quarantine, you actually thought you'd be less busy?
I really thought I was not going to be busy at all. I really was like, oh, I don't have to perform. I don't have to do appearances. I don't have to go to events. Just even more work, because I'm a pianist, I have the ability to record in my apartment because of my new piano. I have this new piano technology, so I don't have to go to the studio. So I recorded my whole album in my apartment during quarantine. Finished.
What was that like though? Like, was that actually really challenging, or did you actually end up preferring it that way?
It's definitely, I would rather record it in the studio with an engineer's help. I had to engineer my own album. So that's just, it's just like, I wish I didn't have to do that, but there's some technical aspects that would have made my life easier. But definitely, I'm so grateful, like having had the ability to work during such a difficult time. It was actually more a distraction from just every day being so like, because I live on the 63rd floor, so I saw the protests every day. Because I live right next to right by the federal building.
Oh, wow.
You can see the World Trade Center. That's the World Trade Center right there.
Oh, okay. Wow. What a view then.
So like a lot of the protests happen in this area just because a lot of federal and state buildings are here. So.
Okay, so that must have been just crazy to be like, here you are trying to be in your creative space, but there's so much happening like right outside your building. So do you feel like that in a way has maybe impacted some of the new music that would be coming out?
Absolutely. So the song that I wasn't supposed to release the song that's coming that came out, Flower Through Concrete, my latest single. I wasn't supposed to release that right now, but I was in the middle of doing a different song during the protest. I remember it was Memorial Day, and I was working on a completely different song with drums, and it was really happy and lit, and I just wasn't feeling it. I just was sitting there orchestrating it, and I was like, I just don't feel like this, and so I decided to write something completely new. And then after I did that, the label was like, I think we want to release this one. I think this is the right time. I think that people need music therapy. Music therapy is real. I think that's something that is not as just different, and something that's like instrumental that can just make you feel like my goal was to make people feel hope, empathy, and through music. And I felt like the best way to do that was just to write something original for solo piano.
I want to first take our viewers a little bit back. So when I was doing my research on you, because I was like, how did she become so talented? Like, you just make it look so easy. Like, you really do. And I was like, wow, like, I wish I could perform like that. Over and over again, I saw people commenting on your videos, on your interviews, saying they're crediting you for making classical music cool again and for making it accessible. And I was thinking, but I was like, you're right, because I know growing up, you never really talked about classical music, right? It was about pop. It was about R&B. It was about hip hop, right? No one was ever like, oh my God, I'm going to go to this classical concert, right? It was very much almost seen as an older genre, yeah. Right? So talk to me about that. Like, how does that make you feel when people are giving you that credit for making it cool again?
I mean, it's like really an honor. I think, it's like, they said that to me on the Today Show, and I was like, and I was on camera. So I was like, really? I just was kind of like, the Grammys had just happened. But I think that, that was never really it wasn't like, I always wanted classical music to be cool, but not just to be cool. It was always with the purpose, the greater purpose of making classical music more mainstream, or making more instrumental music, because classical is really just a period of time within Western art music. So Western art music encompasses classical, which is like Beethoven and Mozart, but also romantic, which is Chopin. So when you say I love classical music and I love Chopin, you're really talking about I love romantic era music within the framework of Western art music. And then Bach would be in the Baroque period. So it's just, I think that classical music, as we've now kind of socially called it, has been this huge category. And I think that's part of what makes it inaccessible, because when you look at categories like jazz, you have different, within the jazz category, you have different types of jazz, right? So I wanted to create something like that within classical music. That in itself, the structure could make it more accessible. And then, you know, the other thing was just I loved the sounds of drums, and like, you know, they're cool, and I like that sound, and I thought it was fresh. And I feel like if Beethoven were alive right now, if Mozart were alive, they would 100% be dropping 808s and testing out different sounds and different hats and different, you know, different snares. I think that they would really be excited about that. So I guess in that purpose of making it more accessible, part of doing that, you have to make it cooler and make it something that people want to listen to and see, because it's not accessible. It's expensive. Opera, you have to dress up. Tickets, cheapest tickets are $200. So, you know, just creating like a space for people to be excited, because now we don't have sports geniuses. Now we don't have music geniuses. We have so many sports geniuses, right? Because all of the funding in schools goes to sports education instead of music education. We all know that music and the arts are always the first to get defunded. So it was like, it occurred to me that it's probably because there's not a lot of demand. So creating a demand meant trying to, you know, package it differently.
That's so interesting. I actually have noticed that too, that every time, you know, there's any sort of downturn or any sort of lack of a budget, arts is where everyone cuts it, right? And unfortunately, even if you can't get access to it at the schools, even if you want to go through a community program or just, you know, for profit, it's really expensive. Like it would be if, let's say, a family had more than one child. I don't know how a family could actually justify in their budget to send all their kids to explore their creative avenues. But it's like for sports, there's just so many more opportunities. I was thinking maybe it's because of the money behind it, because in terms of sponsors, I feel like companies get super excited to sponsor, you know, their logo, and you can't really put a logo on somebody that's playing the piano or playing the violin or something, right? So do you think maybe that's it, that it's really just from the corporate world that we're not getting the support as well?
Yeah, I think the corporate, well, I found like, because I work in a place, I guess, where I'm creating something new. So I understand like when I say corporate, I mean like everyone, like mainstream, like just executives in the music industry, in the arts industry, in the sports industry, in the marketing media industry. They follow what the crowd wants. They aren't like innovative in the sense, a lot of them aren't innovative in the sense where they'll be like, oh, this is something interesting, like let's fund this. They're not like risk takers anymore, you know, like risk taking even in the music industry has kind of diminished a lot. Like they're now signing like already established artists a lot, and people who already have a big following. So I think that like when they invest heavily into sports, infrastructure of sports, education, or just even like college sports and professional sports, it's because there's a huge demand. So that goes back to like the idea of creating a demand where you want these kids to be like, I want to be a musician when I grow up. I want to be like that cellist when I grow up, or I want to play the piano when I grow up, or I want to work in the back end. Like I want to do engineering. They don't know about any of those things because none of those things are taught in school. And I think it's just like it's like a vicious perpetual cycle of like not having access, but also not having knowledge. So.
That's a really good point. I was reading somewhere that when you were young, you used to wake up at 4 a.m. to practice before school. And I was thinking, like, I remember being a kid and you couldn't get me out of bed to go, like, even for an 8 a.m. class. Like, I was like, no. And for you to be dedicated at such a young age. So talk to me about that. Like, what do you attribute that to? Was that just on you, or do you think that has to do with your family?
My parents are extremely hardworking. They're really hardworking. So I think that I'm sure is embedded in my whole personality, and my work ethic is comes from them too. But I when I was like in high school, almost high school, I started taking serious piano lessons at a conservatory level. I was 12, and I was behind because I had been studying piano since I was 2, but at a local level. I wasn't at a conservatory level. So I didn't realize what was out there. And you have to remember, this is pre-social media. This is like, you know, I'm in my mid-30s. So like, you know, it's like, this was like a while ago before we had access to all this internet stuff. And so I wasn't totally aware of what was out there in terms of like teachers and capabilities in the profession. And so I was just taking lessons, like knowing that I was going to be a pianist, but not at the level I wanted. So when I first started taking lessons in New York at the Manhattan School of Music, real lessons with like one of the best teachers there, Zen and Fishbein, I was behind. So I had to get up. I had to practice longer than everyone else had to practice 7 hours. I had to practice 12 to 14 just to catch up in terms of repertoire, in terms of learning music and learning notes. And so I would have to wake up at 4 and practice till 7. And I did it on my own. My parents never made me. Sometimes my mom would be like, you didn't wake up today. Like she would wake me up. I'm like, it was my idea. Like, leave me alone. Today I want to sleep. And she'd be like, no, you have to get up.
We all have those off days. So are you kind of the first person in your family to have that musical gene?
Yeah, definitely. You know, my mom took piano lessons with me when I was little, and she wasn't like good at all. Like she couldn't move her fingers. I would be like, Mom, your fingers are like rigor mortis.
I'm sure she loved that, being criticized
She's
by her
an
daughter.
amazing painter. She's the best painter, like incredible painter. My sister, you know, is not really good at music either.
So you're the first one in the family. I love it. You're setting the bar.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Talk to me about, though, even having those opportunities, because like you mentioned, you've gone to some very impressive schools, which I know are expensive. You've been obviously taking lessons your whole life. Was that easy? Like, was your family in a fortunate position where they could afford to send you that, or were you able to count on outside support to help you get your dreams going?
So the part of the reason I got very involved in music education very early on, like my first performance, I thought I was like 6 or 5 or 4, but my mom says I was like 3 or 2. My first performance was at a nursing home, for, you know, charity. Right. And so, I always was taught, my parents always taught me, you know, music is about service, you know, service and gratitude. So, you know, you're grateful that you're providing a service to people because, I used to get nervous, and I still do sometimes get nervous before stage. And you just have to remember, you're providing a service. You're there to make people happy. You're there to entertain people. But I always knew that like my parents gave me all of the basic hygiene factors, not just education, not just like moral education, but also the instrument itself, the lessons itself. They were able to provide that for me, and without that financial support, I would never be able to be where I am now. I never had to have a job. My parents were like, don't work, just practice, just do music. And so I felt so lucky, which is why I feel like, you know, so empowered to promote music education, do everything I can to help whoever wants to, you know, learn an instrument. Sometimes I'll send them like a keyboard, or, you know, I've donated a couple pianos to Compton Unified School
Oh,
District because
wow.
I really, I want to give back in the sense that I feel like if I could be in a position where I wish I learned how to play the piano, but I never had the ability because I didn't have the resources. So I'm very grateful for that. And definitely I wouldn't be here without their help, for sure.
That's amazing that you're helping them out like that. And you're right. Like, even I'm imagining a piano. I mean, not many people could afford one, right? To be able to practice on one.
Very
So,
expensive. Yeah. All instruments like cellos and violins too, they're just so expensive. And so that's another reason why it's so inaccessible. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, that's amazing. Okay, so let's then take that. You were talking about how you get nervous and you have to remember that you're providing a service. I really liked that because I think everyone can use that. But when you got your first break, girl, your story is just incredible. You got your first break with Babyface. He is
Yeah.
a legend. Like, I was like, how? How? And like, so I want you to tell me the story because I want other people who are like trying to get their big break, that are hustling. I want them to be inspired. So tell us the story about how you met Babyface and got him to sign you.
So it's an incredible story, to be totally honest. I went to one of his concerts. I had no idea who he was. I knew his music, obviously, TLC, Boyz II Men, Whitney Houston, my favorite artists. But like,
Yes.
I didn't know like he wrote their song. Like, I didn't really look at producer credits, right? I'm a pianist, and so I just loved his music. And then I met him at a concert. I didn't know who he was, and when I realized he had written all those songs, I just was like, wow, he's amazing. And I remembered that. And then a few years later, I decided that it was time for me to stop doing hip hop things over already existing songs and for me to really just create my own drums. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't have the technology back then. So I Googled Babyface. I was like, Babyface email. And like, I literally Googled that. And then I actually Googled Kenny Edmonds because that's how I knew him. His name is Kenny. And so it was like Kenny Edmonds. And his manager, Susan Markheim, who's now my manager, her name came up, her email address. So I emailed her. I was like, I met Babyface, like Kenny, like 3 years ago. I told him about a project I was thinking about doing with piano and drums. And I recorded an idea I had. So I did it in GarageBand. Like I just like recorded an idea in GarageBand. And then I sent it to her and she sent it to Kenny. And it was almost Christmas time. So his assistant wrote back to me and was like, hey, we got your demo. Kenny remembers you. He liked the demo a lot. And it's interesting, it's new, it's different. So he's heading to Vegas to see his mother for the holidays. He won't be back till the first week of January. Can you fly to LA first week of January? I was like, of course. My mom and I flew to LA January 5th, and I met with him on the 6th at Soho House. I explained to him the idea, a lunch meeting, and then he signed me right there.
Amazing.
Google, the power of Google.
It really is. That's why I wanted you to tell the story, because I just feel like people that are hoping to get their big break, especially if they don't have any connections, they're just like knocking on doors.
Yeah. I had zero connections.
Yeah. So there you go. Power of Google and the power of having managers put their information out there. So awesome. Because of that, though, it led you to work with so many legends, right? So can you maybe name some of the top 5? Let's do the top 5 legends that you've worked with, if you could.
Well, like Celine Dion, obviously.
Obviously.
Like amazing. I did this amazing record with her with just piano, strings, and her voice, like no drums. It was insane. Crushed it. I did a record with Johnny Mathis, legendary, one of my favorite, he has one of my favorite Christmas albums of all time. I did an amazing track, Fun Times with Nas. Mm-hmm. I worked, Mike Will made it, who produced Miley, he produced Beyonce, her Super Bowl songs, all of that. He and I worked together. He's actually the first person to give me a producer credit. And I was a female working in this industry. It's very hard to get credit to begin with, but to be a woman in this industry is even harder as a producer and a writer. And so he was the first producer to give me my own credit with 2 Chainz. And so those are some, and obviously Babyface.
Of course. But when you're in the room with these legends, like I'm just trying to think of like, not only just being in awe of them, but just being able to ask them, to be able to say, like, pick their brains, to be inspired by them. So when you're in that room, when you're getting kind of this like priceless education with them, what were some of the maybe biggest lessons or advice that they gave to you?
I would say that being in the room that's the one thing about quarantine that I really miss, is being in the room, because that's when the magic happens. You're in a room and you're just like vibing, right? And I don't normally work that way, so that was new to me. I think that to me, the biggest lesson was just watching. Like, I don't really talk to the artists a lot because they're focused, they're in the zone, caring only about their own thing. Like, so I'm just like there to work. But watching the way that people work and watching their work ethic, watching how production is done, all of those things, when you're working with the best engineers and you're working with the best vocal coaches and the best producers, there are things that you will never hear on a record, but you're like, now I know why they did that. Now I know why they did that background vocal, adding texture. It's like, it's so like not something I can just like think of off the top of my head, but just those kind of those details that you forget how important they are, and you learn those when you're working with the best. And I would have to say, regardless of the genre, whether it's Celine or Nas, it's just people, when you're in the room with the best, you learn a lot.
Yeah. And clearly you did, because then you blew up the internet at the Grammys with Cardi B. Now, obviously, everyone loves that performance. 20 million people watched you. Like, that's great exposure. But when I was reading the comments on all the videos, girl, I gotta read some of the comments to you, okay? I'm sure you've read them yourself, but here are some of the comments, okay? People saying, you killed it. Star of the performance. Piano queen. Piano goddess. Performance of the night. Like, it's the Grammys. The who's who of the music industry is there, and you're the one that everyone is buzzing about. Take us back. How did the whole collaboration with Cardi B happen?
So I was doing a session with Meek Mill like a couple years ago, and on the way to that session, I stopped by a dinner. I couldn't drink. I couldn't really hang out because I was working that night. And rap sessions, they always start really late. So this one was starting at 11. So I just stopped by this dinner, and while I was there, Marsha St. Hubert, who is an executive over at Atlantic Records for Cardi, she works with Cardi. She was at the dinner, and I met her and my good friend publicist Lauren Cheridini, who is friends with her, and so we just met and we were talking about music, and she had remembered. I was like, I have to leave, I have to go to this session, so I left. And then I guess like a year or two later, when Cardi was preparing for the Grammys, they wanted a pianist because there's a scene in her music video for Money where she's sitting naked at the piano. And they asked me if I would do that. And I was like, I don't know if you're aware, but like Money only has two notes, like really technically one note. It's an E flat and an E natural in the entire song. There's no pads, there's no strings. It's just E flat, E natural over and over again. So I told them, I was like, you should maybe hire a model because like they only have to play two notes. It's like, it's not really, I'm like, like if you want someone naked at the piano, like hire a model or a dancer. But I said, but if you want me to play, like I would be interested in doing it if, with some solos to, just make it more interesting to visually for me. And Cardi was so down and she was so empowering and such a girl's girl. Like this is her big moment, her first Grammy. She's a superstar already, like a huge superstar already. She just like was so empowering. She was like, yeah, where they took out one of my solos. She's like, stop the rehearsal. She's like, where's that other solo? I want more piano with Chloe. I want Chloe to shine. I want Chloe to have her moment in music. And then I was wearing a different outfit and she's like, stop the rehearsal. She's like, I don't like your dress. And I was like, I don't really like it either because I had a wardrobe malfunction for the previous dress. And she's told the production people, she's like, I want her to stand out more. She has to be more couture. She can't fade away. And it's very rare to see that, especially in female entertainers, to see someone that will share the stage with you in that way and share the shine with you like that. And so it was just like really surprising to see that she was that way. She was great energy on set, like 7 days of rehearsal, hardest working, totally involved in every detail. She's like not just sitting around, like she's in there working. So
I was actually going to ask you what she's actually like to work with because I know we all see her, in her videos on stage and she's very like larger than life, very like outspoken. She commands attention. So that's why I was so proud of you for you to like get that attention on yourself because you would think Cardi B is going to steal the show, right? But girl, you brought it.
I was not, for an hour after the performance, I was like crying in my dressing room because I was so embarrassed because I hadn't rehearsed looking at the camera like that. That was really like not rehearsed. So I just was like, I looked at the camera so hard because he didn't leave. Like he was there. He was like, you can't tell how close he was on top of me. Like he was right here. And I was like, he's really just like.
He wanted you to look into the camera. He was like, I'm not leaving until you look at me, girl. Look at me.
And I asked Tanisha during the dress rehearsal, he was close like that, but not the whole time. He went away like earlier than in the actual live performance. They changed that a little bit, but which is why I ended up looking at him hard. You know what I mean? Like that one time I was like, really looking at him. But it was like totally, I asked Tanisha after the dress rehearsal on Friday night, I was like, the camera was pretty close to me. And if he comes that close to me again on Sunday, like what's the protocol? I've never done live television like this. Am I supposed to not look at him because he's here? And she's like, if you feel like looking at him, look at him, only if it's natural. Do whatever feels right. Like she was very like, trusted me to like just use my piano playing instinct, I guess. And so I think because of that, there was like no pressure. So when he was there, I was like, I'm just gonna do it.
But that was amazing because it felt like you were looking at us, like the viewers, right? And being like, here I am, I'm having my moment, get ready. Honestly, it worked out.
I had no idea I blew up I don't really go on Twitter that much. So I hadn't even looked at Twitter. I was on Instagram and I was like, oh, no one really tagged me. I was like, yeah, it was a great experience. I changed.
You were mentioning before, though, that you would get nervous before a show and then you had to remind yourself that you're doing a service. Grammys, are you keeping that same attitude or are you like 5 minutes before freaking out?
I was trying to tell myself that and breathing really hard, but I'm not going to lie to you. I was dying. I was
okay,
like,
that makes
the
me
stage
feel
was
better.
coming up like this. I heard Alicia Keys go, and now Cardi B, and then like the stage was coming. I was like, why do I do this to myself? Why do I do this to myself? Like,
what do I do this to myself?
I mean, like, oh my God, why is my first major performance live at the Grammys right now? Like, is this really happening? Like, I was scared.
Okay, that's why I wanted to ask you because I think it's so nice to hear that even a seasoned professional like yourself, you still get nervous, right? To be like, oh my God, here I am.
Definitely. I mean, like, also you have to understand that I feel like I'm starting a new instrument, you know, because my whole entire career since I was 2, I had been trained to ignore the audience and never acknowledge the audience. So when you're playing a classical concert, they turn off all the lights in the house and except on a spotlight on stage, and you're not, as a pianist, not even facing the audience. You're facing a wall. You're facing a side of a stage. So you just get into the zone. Always get don't think about the audience. You're in your zone, you're in your zone. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm doing drums. And then, like, when I did my first showcase with Babyface in 2009 or 10, they asked me if I needed a microphone on the piano or if I wanted a mic stand. And I was like, what are you talking about? What would I need a microphone for? And they're like, you're going to have to talk to the audience. And I had never done that. So I was like, what do you mean? I don't just go on stage and perform and leave. They're like, no, you have to talk to the audience and you have to look at the audience and you have to like engage in the audience. And that was like so traumatizing for me. I had to really start over. So the Cardi B thing was truly like stepping outside my comfort zone again, because I had been trained in the opposite way for so long.
Yeah. But that blows my mind that right after you're crying, because I would have been like, I did it. I killed it. I'm proud of myself. But yet you're thinking that you like didn't do well.
Well, I just did, like, you know, I was like, I remember coming off stage and looking at my boyfriend who was there backstage with me. And I was like, and my Larry Jara Sims was there with me, my hairstylist. He's amazing. And I just looked at them and I was like, I looked at the camera like hard and a lot. And I was like, do you think that was okay? They're like, no, it was fine. It was great. But like, nobody was like dying. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't get like, I walked back to my thing. I had no clue. And then when Time Magazine reached out to me and they were like, hey, can we like get an interview? I thought that my slippers were showing. I was wearing hotel slippers under my dress because you couldn't
What?
see. Yeah, you couldn't see my shoes. I was like, why am I going to wear heels? There's no point. Like, you can't see anything. So I thought maybe my slippers were showing. My dress, you know, hadn't been fitted to me yet because we had picked the dress on Saturday, the night before. Cardi picked that dress like literally on Saturday. And so like, I thought maybe my nipple was showing. I just didn't know, you know? So it was like, it was a nice surprise.
I'm sure people listening to this are thinking like, girl, this is crazy. Like you killed it, but yet you're like thinking of all these random things that could have gone wrong. So it just means you're human, because I feel like that's human nature.
Exactly.
Yeah. Trust me, it's always like that, right? You're always self-conscious, especially as a woman. You're always like, that's why you need like a team, because you never want to have that wardrobe malfunction. Like you don't want to be known as the woman at the Grammys who had a nip slip. Like you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
There you
Totally.
go.
Didn't want to be that. Like, I remember what happened with Janet Jackson. That was,
I was
you
just
know,
thinking that, yeah.
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. But okay, so when was that moment then when you were like, wow, people love this performance? So far it sounds like you're still kind of like in your own bubble. So when did you actually like get back into your hotel and you like turned on your Wi-Fi and it's like boop, 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 like all the notifications? Is that a
Yeah,
moment?
I was like backstage, and then, you know, my one of my best friends and publicists, the same girl, Lauren Cherardini, who introduced me to Marsha. She called me. She's like, "Great job! You looked amazing." I couldn't really hear it because, you know, she was at she did PR for Aerosmith, so she was like at their party, and so she's like, "But you looked amazing, whatever." And then like an hour later, while I was changed, getting ready to go to my Sony the label party, I she called me back. She's like, "Oh my God, you're trending on Slack, like on Time Magazine Slack. Like they keep asking who you are." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And then like all of a sudden I went into Twitter and it was like crazy. They were like, "You're trending on Twitter." I was like, "Oh, I don't even look at Twitter." So like then I went on Twitter and it was like crazy. And it was just, you know what it was? It was so like refreshing. And like I have been doing this type of music. Like I did a performance in 2000. I was just watching. I just did a performance in 2007 with like Fat Joe music and piano. I've been doing this since like, I've been trying to do this sound since I was like 16, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was interested in this. And so to finally, after all those years, like thousands of hours of work, it was so nice to finally see that the audience appreciated me. And that goes back to our earlier conversation. I had tried to explain what I did to so many people and they were like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Labels would be like, I don't really get it. Can you do this instead? So I wouldn't sign with them because I was in a position financially where I didn't have to. So like they would be like, well, we'll sign you if you play this music. And I'm like, well, I don't like that music. I would rather do these drums, these hip hop drums or these tracked sounding drums. And they would be like, no, we want you to do EDM, house, drums. Those are the only things that sell. And I was like, but you haven't tried the other stuff yet, you know? So it was just so great to see that when the audience loved the music, the intro and everything and like the vibe, like showing that a pianist could be on stage, look fly, have cool music, look cool, and sell a crowd.
Yeah.
It was the first time in like 20 years that like finally corporate America got it,
Yeah.
you know? So it was like really validating for me in that way.
Of
In that
course. That's why I feel like that night it was amazing for you, but it was also amazing for other women that want to follow in your footsteps because you
it
literally
is.
broke down the barrier that night. That was amazing.
And like for having so many kids watching and like saying like, oh wow, is that a piano? Like what is that? Like should I learn that? Like that was like so
Yes.
like you couldn't have a better scenario. It was like the best case
Yeah.
scenario. So
Because I
I'm
bet
really
you anything, there's probably someone just like you that's like trying to like get
yeah.
signed or trying to like make this into a full career that people are saying the same thing, saying we don't get your sound. No one's going to really do this. This isn't like mainstream. And
Yeah.
like now they can be like, no, did you see the Grammys? Did you see Chloe? Yeah, I think there is a market for it. So
Yeah, I
that's
think there's
awesome.
a market for everything. And I think that now with social media, like I didn't have that platform back then. To exist, I needed a label back then. Like back in the day, you couldn't just post stuff on YouTube. So
Mhm.
it was just everything coming together now is great.
Afterwards, now I know you were saying before that Cardi B was all about like bringing you up, supporting you, making sure you shined, but I don't think she even had any idea of how much you would shine because literally if you look at the headlines, normally you would expect like it'd be like Cardi B plus others, rocked out. Your name was the one on there, right? And so you got a lot of attention for it. Afterwards, did you have a chance to actually like kind of do like a post mortem with her and be like, how do you feel about how the performance went? Like, what did she tell you?
I told you how gracious and like supportive she was throughout the whole entire process. And then when I started reading those Twitter headlines and like they were like Chloe stole the show, Cardi B's piano stole the show, all of those things, I thought maybe she might be like annoyed. I was like, okay, at this point she's gonna be annoyed. And then her label called my team and they were like, Cardi is looking for Chloe. She's asking if she'll come to dinner afterwards with the team. And so I was at my label party for Sony Masterworks. And then I went straight, it was right down the street. I went straight to the dinner and I stopped by to thank her. And when I got there, she was like, you're blowing up everywhere. And she was jumping up and down, hugged me for like 30 seconds, which is like a long time to hug somebody, right? Like, she was jumping up and down, screaming. She was like legitimately so happy for me. It made me like almost cry. Like
Yeah.
so nice. She
No,
doesn't
I
even know
love
me. We're
hearing
not
that.
friends. Like I don't talk to her. Like I don't even think it's like, I haven't spoken to her since the Grammys, but she was just so supportive and so happy for me. And like my friend did a meeting with her. She was doing a business deal with someone I know and he runs the company. He told me that during the meeting, he was like, hey, I'm friends with Chloe Flowers. She played with you at the Grammys. And then she said in front of a whole board meeting, she was like, Chloe Flower made my Grammy performance. Like she was so nice. Like even like 2 months, like 4 months ago. How
Yeah.
long have we been in quarantine? This was probably January. So
Yeah.
months ago. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm so glad to hear that because I feel like sometimes in this industry, they kind of try to pit women against each other. And so I like hearing from someone actually in the industry that it's not like that, that it's like, it's not only one of us can succeed. It's like, let's bring each other up and let's like help each other. I like
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
You've gone on to do so many other exciting things. So I know you're working on a bunch of music. I know it's a little bit top secret right now, which is fine. But collaborations with any new artists, maybe someone on your bucket list, anything you can kind of dish out?
I in terms of collaborations, because of COVID, everything kind of is like a little bit on hold right now. But I definitely my ultimate goal for this album that we've now pushed the album to come out next year because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But my goal for this is just to make great music. And if a collaboration works and if it fits, I treat a vocal like part of like an instrument. So I did like this year I'll be doing this Christmas I'll be going wide with my Amazon exclusive Carol of the Bells that I produced with Babyface, and it has some vocals in it from the Carol of the Bells poem, but they're really embedded into the song, and so it's like almost like an orchestra piece. So when I think about when people come to me with collaborations, I always have to think like which song is going to work where with this artist. I have a lot of instrumental collaborations, and it's going to be like it's not just like trap and piano like Get What You Get. It's not like reggaeton with No Limit. this song that's out now, solo piano. It's gonna encompass all of those different sounds, and that's why I created this genre called popsicle, which is pop classical, what everyone calls classical, like pop classical, which is like the pop instrumental. It follows all of the basic pop song format, but it's instrumental music.
I feel like you aren't afraid to experiment. So I'm already picturing like something just that we're not going to expect from you. Like I'm thinking a collab with a rapper, hip hop, like country.
Totally. Like I have been talking to a couple like amazing, like I'm tight with obviously Meek, Sway Lee. You know, there's it's just I have to find the right song so that they can shine and I can shine and can be a true, like, you know, you don't want to just stick something on there because they're famous or because they're a celebrity or because they have fans. You know, it's still at the end of the day the most important thing has to be the sound and the music. And so definitely there's room for rapper on one of my singles.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna put this out there. So I know you've pushed back the album. You're probably pretty much done, but I feel like there's now an opportunity. I've planted the seed. You're gonna now look through your like little black book to see who's like around, who's like willing to like do this whole virtual collab, and then you're gonna add a song to the album, one that's with like hip hop or rap. That would be amazing.
I'd be like, remember that time you gave me that idea?
Oh, I'm taking full credit. When this wins like a Grammy, I expect somewhere in the notes to be like shout out to that TV host. Yeah. You are a UN ambassador, which I was like, that is amazing. So talk to me about that. Like, how did that come to be?
Oh, like it's for the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime, which is the department of the UN that works specifically in trafficking of drugs and humans. And so I'm an artist ambassador for them. It's like the Artists United Against Human Trafficking. And I think me and Mira Sorvino were the first two ambassadors for that. We might be the only two. I'm not sure if they added more, but it's again, it's like a circle. Every time you ask me a question, I feel like you're so good at asking questions. Everything circles back, like, you know, like it's I could have been born in any circumstance. I was so lucky to have, like I said, the hygiene factors of having parents who not only had the ability to send me to music school, but appreciated the arts in such an immense way that they were like, it's okay if you never make money. If you do classical music or you play piano, that's wonderful, right? So I was lucky to have that. When I learned about human trafficking, I was on tour in Asia and I decided to go. I went to a wedding on my last leg. So you have to understand, I was going from New York to LA, and then I had like a 12-hour layover in LA because the plane broke down. And then I flew from LA to Thailand to Seoul to Shanghai to Singapore. And when I got to Singapore, I went to a wedding. And at the wedding, someone was like, have you ever been to Angkor Wat? And I was like, I'd never heard of it. And they're like, it's one of the 7 wonders of the world and it's very close to here and you should just stop there on your way since you're in Asia. And remember, again, back then travel wasn't as accessible as it is now, right? And so because my personality is very like do whatever, I'm not like I'll just like be like, I'm very spontaneous. And so I was like, so I'll just change all my flights and I'll just go to Cambodia for like a few days. You know, why not, right? So I switched all my flights. I flew to Cambodia and I went to Angkor Wat. It was truly one of the most like incredible experiences. I couldn't believe like how beautiful it was and how intense it was. And so I decided to stay an extra night in that resort in Siem Reap. And even though I had a plane ticket to go to the beach town, this was 2006, I think, the beach town, it's like a 45-minute plane ride on the coast. Because I'm so spontaneous, I was like, I want to go to Angkor Wat again. So I'm just going to cancel my $40 ticket, however much it cost. So I went to Angkor Wat, stayed in the hotel. They gave me an enormous suite, because it was off season. So they're like, you can just stay here for the same price. And I was like, I'm just going to stay. I'm not going to go to the beach. That plane crashed and everyone died. I still have my paper ticket.
What?
Yeah, we had paper tickets back then. So me and my ex-boyfriend, who was with me at the time, we're watching the news and we're like, isn't that our flight? Like, they couldn't find the plane for 3 days. It crashed in a jungle. It was horrible. Everybody died. I think it was over 200 people. And after that, I decided to rent a bike, you know, like one of those like Cambodian like rental bikes for like $1. I rented it. I just like explored around Cambodia. I was like really like, oh my God, like I could be dead right now, right? And then when I was doing my exploration down the beaten path, I saw some like very precarious looking situations, which were like suburban looking homes in like the very poor Pol Pot like Pol Pot, I think, had been removed from power in 79 or 80. So they were still recovering from that genocide. And it's very poor, a lot of the country. And so when I saw these like weird suburban houses, I was like, they really stood out. And then like, there were like little girls outside, and then there were like sketchy old guys coming in and out, like a lot. And so I thought, what is going on here? So I went back to my hotel room and I Googled children brothel Cambodia. Like, I don't even remember what it was. Like, I didn't even Google trafficking because I didn't even think of that. And that's when I learned about human trafficking. And I was like, oh my God, I consider myself educated. Well, I consider myself well-traveled, culturally aware. I watch the news, I read. How do I not know about this? And so like when I went back to the United States, I like made it a mission to build awareness on human trafficking. And that was like, around when Twitter was starting and like before Twitter. And then now it's, become such a big campaign for people. And so now I'm really focusing on prevention through music education, which is how I ended up working with the UN on prevention tools.
Okay. That trip and that story,
That was a
so many
lot.
questions. You've blown my mind. Okay, I'm gonna try to like remember all the questions. Okay, how do you come back to the States and move on with life knowing that you could have been dead? Like, that blows my mind, girl, that you actually, one decision changed everything. Like, it's gotta have affected you now.
I think that's how I like. It was so like real. Like when I rented that bike, like it was just like I felt like I saw things differently. Do you know,
Yeah.
like when you're that young and you're just cavalier about life and you're not, like you're just like, I'm a superhero. Um, you start to really appreciate things and look at things differently. And I think that having experienced that almost death situation was really just like changed the whole way that I view my relationship with not just music, but with everything and with life in general. So it was pretty intense. Yeah, I came back to America and I was like, I have to do something
Mm-hmm.
bigger than what I'm doing now. Like I have to be less selfish, because like there's other stuff going on and like, I would have hated to die so young and not have, like been like a good part of society and done something,
Mm-hmm.
like contributed.
Wow.
That was weird.
That is just an insane story. So thank you for sharing that, because like I can only imagine how scary it must have been to see that on the news and just have this sense of one decision.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, that's such a crazy story. So getting back to human trafficking and being able to now see that it's such a big issue, I was reading that you are using music education to prevent it. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, it's one thing to bring awareness of it, which I agree. I feel like we don't hear enough about it, and it is a big problem. It happens everywhere. So I'm glad that you are trying to bring awareness, but you're also trying to prevent it through music education. So explain that to me. How can we use it to prevent it?
So when I had to give my very first speech, it was at the UN. They asked me to come give a talk on human trafficking, and it was then when I started to think about what I was going to write and what I was going to say and how I was going to really talk about my experience. I decided that I did a lot of research, and then I started really understanding the reasons why people enter human trafficking, whether it's on the supply or the demand side. And a lot of it comes from poverty, obviously, lack of identity, lack of community, weak family bonds, and all of these things are solvable by music education. When you have a child who is like I try to think about my kids in Compton Unified School District, or even I did a lot of music education programs at East Lake Detention Center, where a lot of girls were there for prostitution, under 18 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I I really started to understand that when you have a child that comes from a place with no community, no friends, no identity, lack of self-esteem, lack of dignity, and you hand them an instrument and you put them in an environment where they actually can like do something, whether they're good or not. Like that's the problem with music, is everyone's like, I'm not talented, but you don't have to be talented to participate. And so, you put them in that situation, all of a sudden have confidence. They all of a sudden have a sense of identity. They're like, I'm playing an instrument, or I'm playing the piano, or I'm singing. They have a sense of community. All of a sudden, their community members are coming around and like listening to their concerts. You see stronger family bonding. Their parents are coming to the school to watch them. They're proud. They're clapping. All of these little things that we don't really think about, they all prevent kids from entering the supply and demand side. It gives them this sense of self-esteem and a sense of worthiness and dignity that can help prevent them from entering that industry, because at the end of the day, like, the best case scenario is to prevent them from going there in the first place. Because once you've been trafficked, you know, a lot of the girls have, it takes years of psychological rehabilitation. They often get addicted to drugs by their pimps. And so it's so much better to me to focus on that, because that's where I excel, is music education. And so I can use that and try to give these kids like a sense of identity. And I'm only one person, so like, you know, I really push arts education and arts funding. Like I'm doing a program with VH1 Save the Music, because it's like, you know, even though I don't really have time, but like I was like, I'm gonna make a really dope video for you guys because it's important. Like it really prevents kids from entering anything degrading to themselves. So
I was actually going to ask you about the funding, because I absolutely agree with you. But again, it's like, we've talked about this before. There's no funding for it. Like a lot of people will cut that. So apart from that, are you maybe trying to work with some of the maybe like decision makers, maybe lawmakers, politicians, maybe other women like yourself that have a platform to say, let's put that pressure on there. Let's try to like make awareness of this. So companies, or, you know, even tax dollars, more of it gets allocated to this.
yeah, and I think that eventually that will happen as again, there is more demand for music instruments, because at the end of the day, a lot of these corporations, they want to make money, right? Or they want to they don't they're not going to give money to something that's not going to give them some kind of reward. That's just the way that capitalism oftentimes goes. But I think that for me personally, like, I'm not like in that corporate space. So I think me working with organizations like VH1 Save the Music, even the UNODC and the United Nations, programs like that, they're so good at like, you know, lobbying and doing all of the political back end work that needs to be done. I do have friends in politics, and I'm always pushing for music education whenever I see them, pushing for policies. Right now, you know, we have a different type of administration that's, you know, I think one of the first things Trump did when he entered office was cut funding for the arts. So it's like, you know, once that changes over, then, you know, hopefully we can reevaluate how we can talk to the federal, like at a federal level. But statewide, yeah, I'm always pushing for really just one thing: music education in all public schools. It's just, if you could just get music education in all public schools, I think there would be a huge difference in those communities that really need it the most, because they're the ones that need it the most. So I think me trying to create demand and trying to get these kids to say to their teachers, like, why don't we have a piano here? You know, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Amazing. Oh, look at you. I'm so proud of you. I know I don't even know you, but honestly, I like love women like you, because it's like, you know, I think you're so fortunate to have this platform, right? And, you know, you've worked your way up, you have done the hustle, but now you have people listening to you. And I think that is such a gift to be able to have people's attention. Like you mentioned before, we're in a social media world, so people around the world, they don't even have to like be in the same place as you, can follow you and go, what does Chloe care about? You know, why should I care about what she's saying, right? So the fact that you recognize that and you're using that platform, that's amazing.
Thank you.
What do you want to be known for at the end of the day?
I think in terms of my legacy, to me, what's most important is personally, like on a personal level, is to have a body of work that is that I'm proud of and that I love, and that people love, and really to again, broadly, to really make put instrumental music on the map, whether it's piano or a stringed instrument. To me, I think that the benefits, for all the reasons we talked about in relation to human trafficking, but also in music therapy, it just in terms of life, I feel like instrumental music is not getting the recognition and appreciation that it should have. So to me, my legacy, I would love to be and if, if it's not me or someone after me or someone, someone much later down the road, that's great too. But for me, as my goal, I'm alive now. I would like my legacy to be that of bringing instrumental music to a mainstream audience.
Yes, for sure. Okay, before I let you go, quick question. Chloe Flower. That's a really cool stage name. What's the story behind it?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So my sister was like, do you remember when Facebook, like you could only join if you had a .edu address? I don't know if you remember that. It was like a
No.
long time when it first started, and I was really little, and I couldn't, I didn't have an EDU address because I was like in elementary school or something. My sister got me an EDU address, and I joined Facebook, and I just made my name Chloe Flower. It was just like I had no friends. I was just by myself, right? It was just Chloe Flower because my parents used to always call me Chloe Flower because I bruise really easily, like a petal. They said like that I'm so delicate, and so and then when I started dating my first boyfriend, he would be like, you're such a flower. He started randomly calling me Flower Girl, and then when I moved to London to go to the Royal Academy of Music, my best friend there would call me Chloe Flower randomly. And then when I started working for Russell Simmons, I interned for him for many years. Kimura was in the same office, and she would always call me Chloe Rose. She'd be like, "You're a flower. I'm gonna call you Rose, Chloe Rose." And so it just became my stage name. Everyone just called me Chloe Flower.
Oh, what a
Very
great
working.
story. I love it because it's a really cool name, right? I'm like, oh, I wish I could have been like, I'm in Flower. Let me get back here, though. You interned for Russell Simmons?
Yes, I interned for Russell Simmons. Yeah,
That's
great,
amazing. What's he
amazing, so
like?
great. I learned so much about business. Like I learned nothing about music from that internship. Just
That's
business.
fine, though, because you got to know about business, girl, especially
Yeah,
in this
oh,
industry.
absolutely. It was and just like the way that Russell treated his staff and everyone around him. I was in the executive office, so I was very, very close. I listened in on all the calls, I connected everyone, I did all the scheduling, and I initially, so when I came to New York, I wanted to do nonprofit in arts, and someone was like, "Have you heard of Russell Simmons?" I had never heard of him before, and they were like, "Oh, well, he has an art program called Rush Philanthropic," and like so they set up an interview for me for that position, and that position wasn't available. Only the executive office was available, so they put me there instead, and that's how I ended up working for him. It was amazing. It was so great. It was so much fun. I learned a lot.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. You've just had an unbelievable career because you keep meeting all these people that it seems like it just happens and then you're able to just
Have
get
it
such
like
priceless education.
yeah, it was like really random. That whole internship thing was. I didn't even want the job. I was like, "Are you sure there's nothing?" I was like, "Can I leave?" And they're like, "No, this is the best position. It's in the executive office." I was like, I want to do art."
Yes. Because imagine the connections you're making. Imagine how you're learning. Like, I don't know how much you were able to listen in on, but I mean, he is very successful and he has so many different genres of businesses going on. So,
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, I learned about so like inner workings. You listen to how people think about their companies, how they intend on making money, how they intend on dealing with problems, and it was really,
branding.
like being in the studio. You're just like I'm like a sponge,
Yeah.
like.
Does this mean eventually we're going to see you expand into different things? Like, are we going to see a clothing line? Or are we going to see like maybe a line of instruments? Maybe
I
just
did
your
a
own?
drink
That would be
line,
cool.
I did a beverage, a tonic, and Asian inspired, for my Asian listeners out there. I did a beverage called Modern Alchemy, and it sold out in every Whole Foods. And we got into all the major supermarkets, but it just, like I still have the company, but I haven't recreated the product. We've been so busy, and especially now with COVID. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I've definitely done this. I love business. I wake up every morning, I watch Squawk Box. Always my
So
favorite.
maybe right now, if there's a young woman of color, or actually no, any woman of color that is wanting to get into the business world, I'm thinking
Mhm.
internship for you. That would be amazing.
Yes, yes,
You need the
exactly.
help, and then we
Yeah,
want to bring other women
definitely.
up.
Yes.
So there you go,
Like, and
win-win.
the director of my music video for my latest single, Flower Through Concrete, the reason I chose her, Deb Tam, she is unbelievable. And she's this young Asian girl. And I was like, like there were 6 directors I was looking at. And, when I saw Deb Tam, I was like, oh, is she Asian? And then, I heard such great things about her. And then like, I was like, oh, she's Asian and she's a woman. I have to use her.
Yeah.
Can't use any of these. Everyone else was a guy. So I was like, I have to use her. And I think that's like, the Asian community, like go Asian.
No, it's absolutely true because we need representation. I know, the movement has been growing. I mean, look at Crazy Rich Asians. I know that movie, but the thing is, again, I was like, that's one movie. Like, why are we all like going crazy? We need more, and also we need roles that aren't like for Asian people that literally just happen to be performed by an Asian actor or singer, whoever, right? Like, I want to see that.
Have you seen the movie Heathers?
No.
Okay, I just watched it for the first time. It's like an 80s movie. And there was a scene in there that I found so deep, which I don't even like. I can't even believe I'm saying this on air right now. But anyways, like this might make me sound crazy, but there was a scene in there that was so deep because it was like just a regular scene that had no importance to the movie. It's like nothing in the storyline. I just happened to notice it as a person who didn't watch 80s movies because I was too little. But I was born in the 80s. So there was a scene where this guy, like the Asian kid in the scene is like the cool kid. And then the African American kid in the scene is like the nerdy one. It is like the nerdy math person. And all the time in most television shows and films, it's like the other way around. And I think that people don't understand how, like in the industry don't understand in film like how impactful representation of races is in a role. Like what you said, like I wish like there were more like Asians representing like cool people instead of just like math nerds, and vice versa, you know what I mean? Like, and like the African American like kid being the smart, like the president of student council, and being the nerdy one. He was like really nerdy and anal and like, you know, like do this, no, that's wrong, you know? And so I feel like totally we need better representation overall across the board. And I think now we're seeing some real changes.
Of course. And last piece of advice: if somebody wants to reach out to you, let's say wants to either work with you or just maybe like, connect with you, is there a way to do that? Are you quite open to people reaching out to you for advice?
I'm just like a regular person, you know, like I mean, like, you know, everyone hits me. Like I give out my assistant's email address. I've posted it 1,000 times on Instagram. You can hit me on Instagram. I try my best to read everything and like, you know.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. Yes, lead the way, girl. Thank you so much for chatting with me. You've been so amazing.
Thank you. I had so much fun.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Chloe Flower. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to this channel.